Alright guys, hope everyone's doing well. Welcome. I am putting this video together for one of my classes for prop and weapon design, and I thought it would be helpful. Normally in entertainment, when you're making or sketching a concept for a prop or a weapon, typically I find that it's really easy to make something in 3D first, so you can make sure that your perspective is accurate when you're drawing it and sketching over it. This is something I do frequently with my own work, and I wanted to show you guys how to make this sword in SketchUp so you could try to do it yourself, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you. So this is just what we're looking at. This is going to be what we're going to be making today. Let's get started, shall we? So first, before I started this, I made a PNG of a sword, which I made in Photoshop, which you can see here, and I lowered the opacity because I wanted it to be somewhat translucent in SketchUp just for our visibility purposes, but I made sure that it was evenly aligned, and I did that with the ruler tool. As you can see, 0, 360, half of that, 180 right there in the middle, so that when I did import this into SketchUp, it's going to be perfectly symmetrical. It doesn't matter if these edges, all that matters is the center is symmetrical. There's two ways you could do that. You could use the ruler, or you could do the old method of drawing an X, just straight down the middle. Either way, but this line is here to help us to know exactly what's in the middle of our model. So okay, let's get into it, shall we? So first thing I'm going to do is import the image. So you go to import, my device, and it's not working. Okay, hold on one sec. So I'm saving this as a PNG. Alright, let's hope it works now. Import my device. There it is. Strange how it didn't work before, but now it works. Sometimes it just takes a minute for it to upload. So we're going to do this as an image. And I'm lining it up with this blue axis line here, making sure it's center. And now I'm holding, clicking, dragging. It's kind of weird how it does this. It'll tell you where you want it to be, and then you can drag, and I'm dragging till it's right centered as best as I can get it to look. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. You just want it on that line. And if you're doing this on your own, you're going to want it to be on that line as well. Okay, so it's there. Now I have it in Photoshop. I can scroll around it. First thing you guys are going to want to have set up over here, you can see scenes. So yours is going to look something like this, probably. You're going to want to click on scenes, and that will bring up these little pictures of houses. These are the ones we want. This is the front, this is the side, this is the other side. what these allow us to do is just to quickly snap back to where we want to look at our model when we are moving around. Also, when we are moving around, I'm typically using the O orbit tool and H for the hand tool. That helps me to quickly move around and see what I'm doing. So first step I want to do is we're going to work on drawing the cross guard of the sword here, or making the cross guard of the sword. So notice how we have this blue axis that's dividing ours in half. We're going to draw a straight line down that with the line tool, and I'm zooming in with just dragging, or you can hit Z, or you can just scroll on your mouse if your mouse has a scroll ability. So I'm drawing a straight line. Notice when it's red, that means it's moving along the red axis, which is straight. So it's a perfectly straight line right now. See how this is blue? It's snapping to the blue axis right now. I don't want it to do that, but because it has a little bit of sensitivity, it's just going to do it automatically, and I can't do anything about that right now. So I'm just going to draw that from that angle, and then I'm going to on face of image. That doesn't mean anything. It just means it's on top of the image that we're drawing this. And now I'm clicking here and right on the endpoint there. So I noticed that we didn't, if I flip over to the other side here, you can kind of see ours is not quite lined up with the image that I drew. So I'm going to draw a little line here so that it's now lined up, and click and make sure it's touching all the way to the other side, and that's just using the L tool. And I'm going to shave off this little spot I don't want anymore. Now we're going to zoom out a little bit so we can see what we're doing, and we're going to make sure we're selecting this whole thing by clicking. Instead of just clicking once, you want to make sure that outlined edges are being selected. So I'm double clicking to make sure it's outlined in blue. That means it's fully selected. And there's an option to flip is what we want. You may not be seeing it in yours, and that's okay. When you click down here, these three dots, it'll pull it up for you. It'll pull up all of the actions, and you'll find flip will be right here in this second box. So you're going to click flip, and then it's going to show you this weird three little boxes. These are each the axis of Sketchup. So if we zoom out, you can see we have a green line for the green axis, a red line for the red axis, and a blue line for the blue axis. So what flip does is it allows us to flip whatever we're drawing along those axes. So since this right now is lined up with the red axis, I want to flip it along the red axis. I'm going to click the red box, and look, see how it flipped it along the red box. But let's see what happens if I click it on the green box. Nothing happens because it's right now lined with the red box. If this was rotated this way and I flipped it, it could mirror the sides, but because it's only right now a flat image that's on the red box, it's only going to work on the red box. Now I noticed I made a mistake here. I forgot to duplicate this side. So what we're going to do instead is make sure we're selecting it and hit Control and Option, and you're going to see the move. So first I'm double clicking and hitting move, M for move. So when you're in the move command, you can move by any direction you want, and if you are holding shift, it'll allow you to move in a straight line or up and down in a straight line. So I'm going to hit M and hit Control and Option at the same time, so I see this plus next to my arrows, and then I'm holding shift again, and it's going to create a perfect duplicate of the the shape that I just drew, and it's going to place it right next to it. Oops, sometimes it gets a little bit glitched when you're unclicking. You can just hit Command Z. So I'm going to move it there, deselect, or instead of deselect, I'm going to hit spacebar when I'm done, and now I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to flip it again along the red axis, so I'm making sure I'm selecting red. And then I'm hitting spacebar. Now I want it to be moved to be touching this edge as close as possible. So I'm going to hit M and shift, scrolling. I'm going to make sure I'm zooming in as far as I can so that they're actually touching each other. It looks like they're touching each other, so I'm going to hit space bar and then click away, so I deselect. And once they're touching, I can actually erase this line. And it's erased. Right now this line we're seeing here is actually just the blue axis line that's moving through the axis. But the line that was attaching both is no longer there. But let's just say we kept that line. You can see we can select both boxes at the same time. But because, well, let's keep that line for now, because it'll be our measuring guide when we move across our as we go along. So watch what happens when I hit. I'm going to select an area and hit P, which brings up this editing option, and I'm going to drag it out. I'm going to drag it probably. I'm thinking about how wide I want my sword to be, so I think that's probably good. Now I'm going to click on the same one, hit P, and hold Shift, double click, and it's going to do the same exact thing. I'll show you again. So hitting P, just double click. You don't have to hold Shift. That was my mistake. So whenever you double click after pulling an area, it'll pull the same exact distance on the next area you select. See how that worked? So now we have, because we kept it together, there's this line dividing down the middle on all sides. So right now that looks just about where I'd like it to be. So I'm going to draw a circle now using the circle tool, and I'm going to put it right smack in the center here. And it's going to usually when you find a midpoint in a box, it'll tell you by having this midpoint option pull out. So it's showing a blue circle right now. I'm clicking and I'm dragging it out just as far as I can without it. I don't want it to touch the edge, because that will traditionally swords don't, the hilts don't touch the edge. So I'm going to get it just about here, and I'm going to, now we see we have two sides. I want this to be one shape, so I'm going to erase this line with E. By hitting E, it brings up the eraser. So now we have one shape, and it's not quite lined up. When you see, we're going to move back out here. There's going to be lots of moving and resizing in SketchUp, but you can see, as you can see, this circle is nowhere near the size we want for our for the handle of our sword. So I'm going to hit S, and that's going to bring up these 8 green little arrows, and I want to move to, that will allow you to adjust the size. Now you can adjust size by selecting area, like one side and dragging, and it'll adjust towards whatever side you're dragging towards. But if you hold option, you'll notice that rather than it'll bring up this little red dot in the middle, that will equally size out the shape. And I'm going to drag it all the way to the line that we drew earlier, like that. Perfect. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I have some space to see what I'm doing, and using hand to drag up. I'm going to pull down now with the pull tool, and I'm going to pull to just below our circle for the bottom of our sword, and I'm going to hit S when I've gotten to the size I want. And that's Right now we have a perfectly symmetrical cylinder, but I want to resize it so that it fits with the sword silhouette. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold Option, and while holding Option, I'm going to resize it down so that it now creates this cool little bevel, or it kind of, you can mix and match the size, so you can go wider or smaller, but we want it right here for now, and we're just going to leave that alone. Notice how it's going down below the circle. Now we're going to go back up to here, and we're going to start to create our sword. So using this line that we have here centering, I'm going to draw. Well, first I want to, just to create for my own eye, I'm going to try to measure and draw a line across, and see how it's green? That means it's a straight line following the green axis. No longer in the green axis, and then it snaps to the axis. So that's good. That's what we want. So yeah, this says midpoint. That's good. So we can actually create a line here that measures the midpoint for us. So now we know that that our sword is going to be perfectly in the middle. And I'm going to draw a line to each edge, and I'm just sort of eyeballing it. I'm trying to make sure that they're symmetrical as possible and that they're touching this edge. And it looks like they're touching the edge, which is good. So I'm going to erase now this midpoint line we drew earlier. I'm just selecting over the line, hitting E, and we no longer need these lines as well, so we're getting rid of those. Now we have this one shape here for our sword, and we're going to hit M and plus an Option again, and we're going to move along. Notice how when I move my mouse over an edge, a straight edge, it kind of, this red box appears. That means that even though this area is selected, if I move it, I can move it along this edge. So watch what happens when I click and drag. It follows that edge. And if I move to this other side, then it flips it to this side of the face. So now it's flipped, but I want to keep it, I'm still holding the click down. I haven't let go of release the click. I'm going to put it right here. Perfect. And that's, now we have a mirrored side, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to mirror it with the flip option. Same edge, red. So it's flipped. Hitting spacebar to get out of the flip option. Zooming in now. I want to make sure these lines touch. So I'm holding shift to make sure it's staying straight, and I'm hitting M. I'm going to zoom in very far here. And I'm just going to gently, it's looking like it's not going to give me, oh, here, I'm going to select the edge and move it right there. Perfect. Closed. So I'll show you again what I did there. I'm selecting this edge and I'm dragging it. So I'm zooming in, grabbing the edge, and it says on edge, and then letting go. It's right there in the middle. Perfect. So now we can actually erase this line in the middle, and this makes one shape. Now notice what happens, because this is a triangular shape, a box shape, it has 4 sides. So as we pull up, there's still going to be a line here in the middle. Even though I'd erased this line, there's still going to be a line that divides it down the middle. So we're going to go back to this view, zooming out. I'm actually going to click down here, scroll up. We're going to pull it up all the way to this line here. There we go, and hit S again. And by holding Option, it'll allow us to size it out evenly. So we're going to come out to here. I'm actually going to rotate this so I can see it more clearly, and do it again for you, and hitting Option. Oops. Hitting Option. What's going on? See what happened there is I did not select the outside edge. If you do not select the outside edge, sometimes it will not work when you're hitting the option size tool. So there we have it there. Perfect. Now that's now if we hit P again, we're almost done. So now if we hit P again, it's going to pull up the sword. It's going to create a new line. So because we changed the size, when I pull it, it's always going to be straight, flat sides. Whenever you pull something upwards, it's never going to be oddly shaped or concave to one edge. So I'm pulling this up. I'm going to pull it up a little bit past the tip of the blade. And once I'm doing that, I'm going to hit S again and zoom and hit Option. And I'm going to zoom it in as far as I can get. And I'm going to keep doing that by zooming in. And it's going to hit, there's going to be a point where it stops. I'm just going to keep going as far as I can go till it's as tight of an edge as I can get it. And it doesn't have to be perfectly even, because it's going to be, you're not going to notice it at this size. Now look what happens when we zoom out. Now we have a perfect perfect blade there, which is what we want. Next we're going to do the bottom of the blade, the little decorative area here. And let's see, let's draw it on this side and see what we can do so we can get a perfectly even circle. And we're going to use the circle tool. We're going to draw on, so we're going to try to get it as close to the middle as possible. By clicking this, it centers it for us, so that's centered perfectly. Let's see if it'll let me. Okay, so I'm making sure this purple diamond is just in the middle of the circle, and I'm zooming out. I'm kind of just eyeballing this, but I'm making sure it's aligned with the red axis, with this red line here. Now we have this perfect little we have this circle here, and we can move it up and down if we need to. So notice, so I can move it. If I drag it along the blue axis, it stays at the blue axis, so it goes perfectly up and down. And now I can pull it forward, so that, see how it's coming out like that? If I move to the other side, once I let go, we'll see it, that it's come out. So this is the front of our blade now, where we just pulled towards. And it's a little bit bigger than I would have liked, so I'm gonna zoom out. And let's see, I wanted to see it from the side, perfectly from the side. I can click one of these edges. These shows us the side, so we can see if it's even, and it looks pretty even to me. So that's good. I just want to do one more thing, which is the scale, not the scale, I'm sorry, the offset tool, or F. If we hold the offset, if we use that and we click on a face and click, it'll allow us to create another shape within the shape that mirrors the outside edge. And you can go outside, but for our purpose you want to go inside, because we're going to do a little decorative element here. I'm going to pull that out, and that looks pretty cool. Let's say we wanted to do it on the other side. So before we do that, let's do one more thing. I want to get rid, we no longer need this image anymore, so we can get rid of that, just erase it. Or if you wanted to, you can hide it. If you wanted to see it again later, let's say, if you were doing this for your own 3D your own sword design and you weren't sure if you were ready to get rid of it, you could just hit hide, and then if you click display here, you will see hidden objects. If you click that, or I'm sorry, hidden geometry, now it shows, you can still see, it's kind of like the ghost of the image we just hid, but it allows us to select it once you have hidden geometry selected. So when I click it off, it's gone, but when I click it, it's back. So now I see it, and I can right click and hit unhide, and it's back again. But let's just hide it for now. We don't need it. So actually, I'm sorry, we can just get rid of it. So now we can orbit and rotate and see to our other side, and notice that on the other side here, we never so let's go back to our scenes first. We never drew the other side. There's a side here missing. So there's two things that we could do, but the easiest for us now would be to just draw it with our line tool. When we move it, it kind of snaps to the corners of the areas. As you can see, it snaps. If you just click it and drag it to another side, it will now fill in that area, which we can now erase that line we just drew, and then now we have a perfectly flat area here. And I'm going to erase this line on this area because I just want this to be one shape. Now the other way we could have done this is deleting that. Now I can go over here and hit pull by selecting it and hit Option plus, and if I rotate over here first so you can see, and I hit pull and I hit Option plus, it allows us to pull it all the way back to the other side. Now if we go further, it'll create a new edge, but if you want to stop it just right on the edge, it'll move it over to the other side like that. But if I hit pull, just regular pull, it just moves it out. But when I hit Option plus, it creates a new edge. See how that works? Okay. So we're going to do that same thing over here with our little guy. So I'm going to rotate. Let's see the side view. So I have it right now selected, and I'm going to go to the side view and hitting pull and Option plus. I'm going to zoom it out so now I can see exactly what's going on, and I'm going to release it right there. Now it looks pretty even to me, and voila, we're done. Now let's say you wanted to see the lines on well, first let's say you didn't like this line down the middle here. For design sakes, just doesn't quite look good, so you can hide it, and you can do the same thing to the other side, so it looks more like a cylinder and rounded. Oops, there we go. Now what I'm going to do is select this area so that everything, I'm making sure everything here is selected, because if it's selected, it'll show it with this like blue polka dots. And I'm going to right click and hit intersect faces with selection, and watch what happens. Now there's a line that moves along the edge of where this shape meets this shape, so that when you are drawing this later or tracing over this, you can now visualize and see where this edge touches the circle. Not the circle, but the cylinder. So last thing I'm going to do is make sure, so I zoom out so I can see everything, and I'm going to select it with space bar and holding down the mouse and make and say to make group. And once we have it as a group, you'll see you have 4 boxes around it, and that allows us to easily move and rotate our sword so that we can pose it however we want. And when you want to rotate it, you hit M and you find these little red crosses on each edge, and they allow you to pose it. Now, let's say I wanted to now rotate the sword along this red axis, but I don't have a way of turning it because right now it's going to turn kind of diagonally because of the way it's tilted. Then the next thing you would do is click on the rotate tool, or Q, and that brings up a box here. So I want to rotate around the red axis, so I'm going to click. Well, that's going to bring it around the blue. So hold on one sec. First I'm going to tilt it this way, and I'm going to click on the rotate. Now sometimes it can be a little tricky because see how it's just showing blue right now, and I want it to show green. I want it to show red. Okay. So now it's showing it along the green. What I believe I need to do is rotate so that here, okay, perfect. Now I finally have it along the red axis. So what happens is when I bring up the rotate tool, it's a little tricky. It's going to see how it moves along this face. Right now, the reason why it's giving me troubles is because there isn't any flat. There's nothing flat for it to move along. But right now it's saying it's moving along the red axis. So I'm going to click it. And then it's going to be showing this line here. Okay, so right now where I clicked, it's creating a swivel point, so we can rotate it along that swivel point. So let's say I clicked it here. Now I can rotate it along that edge, there. Now let's say I click it here, and I want to rotate along this way, this direction. I click it over there, and it's going to rotate that direction. If that makes sense. Let's say I click here in the middle and I remove the camera and I still want to rotate it. I want to rotate this way though. It's going to give me a hard time. So I'm clicking on it, clicking over here. It's a bit tricky, but I personally usually just select and use the M option and pose it out that way. I find that to be the most easiest. And you can always straighten out your object first and then arrange it in the angle you want it in, and then tilt it. And once you have a view that you like, you can create a scene by clicking this plus here down in scenes, and that will create scenes of various angles that you can go back and view later. So that if you found a potential area where you would like to take a screenshot and save that and draw it in Photoshop later, you can do so. But notice how now I can go back to these scenes and review the different angles. So that's about all I wanted to cover for today, guys. The next step would be to take your screenshot and drop it in Photoshop, and you will be able to edit or draw over your sword and hopefully create a cool masterpiece. Real quick, I think I will show you guys just what I mean by that. So I'm going to pick an angle that I like. I think I like this angle here. I'm going to take a screenshot and drag that into Photoshop. Now, obviously, I'm not going to just draw straight on top of this, but what I am going to do is create a separate layer and put a white screen below, and down, lower the opacity here, and I'm going to draw on top of it. And I think it helps to really lower the opacity so that you're barely looking at it, because that forces you. Oh, and also, I made a mistake. The image is not right in size right now. The image size is the same resolution as the screenshot I took, which means the line quality is going to be crappy. So I'm going to raise the resolution to 300. And now when I draw, my lines are much more fine and intricate, which is good for sketching out a design. Now what's cool about this is you can now kind of use this as just a tracing. You can trace on top of this. You don't have to entirely copy what you made in SketchUp, because that would be kind of boring. Most sword hilts don't look this simple. If you're trying to do something a little bit more intricate. I would definitely recommend trying to build on top of the model that you built. Now I'm still following the perspective of the sword that we created here. I'm actually going to narrow this down a bit. You know, I could change this area here to be like a jewel. And now I no longer need the SketchUp model. Because I'm feeling confident now, and I feel like I know where this is going. As you can see, my sword does need a little bit of work, but I just wanted to make this video very quickly so I could show you guys the usefulness of having a 3D version of your prop. There you go. All right, cool. Hope you guys found this useful, and let's do one more thing, because oops. There you go. Cool.